The alarm bells rang through the bridge of the Earth Defense ship Morning Star. Captain Dong-Soo Kim rushed to his command chair as red lights flashed around him. His crew moved quickly to their stations, faces tense with worry. "Report," Dong-Soo said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Sir, we're getting a distress signal from Kepler 442b," said Lieutenant Bo-Ra-Han from the communications station. "It's from the Valix homeworld." Dong-Soo felt his stomach drop. The Valix had been Earth's closest friends for 30 years. They were peaceful, plant-like beings who grew their cities instead of building them. Their world was covered in beautiful gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. "Put it through," he ordered. The main screen flickered and the face of Bloom of Seasons appeared. The Valix leader looked like a walking tree with gentle eyes that glowed soft green. His bark-like skin was darker than usual, which meant he was very worried. "Captain Kim," Bloom of Seasons spoke in his slow, musical voice, "we need your help. The Galactic Council has given us an ultimatum." Dong-Soo leaned forward. The Galactic Council ruled most of the galaxy. They were made up of older alien races who thought they knew what was best for everyone. Earth had never been allowed to join because they said humans were too young and violent. "What kind of ultimatum?" Dong-Soo asked. "We must stop all cooperation with humanity, or they will use force against us," Bloom of Seasons explained. "They call it protective intervention, but we know what they really mean." The bridge fell silent. Every human there knew how much the Valix had helped Earth. When humans first met the Valix, both species had been struggling. The Valix were peaceful, but had no way to defend themselves. Humans were good at fighting, but their technology was crude. Together they had created something amazing. The Valix shared their biotechnology, teaching humans how to grow ships instead of building them. These bioships could heal themselves when damaged and adapt to new situations. In return, humans protected the Valix and shared their knowledge of industry and warfare. "Sir," said Commander Haya Jin Park from her station. She was Earth's main contact with other alien races. "I've been hearing rumors about this for weeks. The Council is scared of what we've accomplished together." Dr. Woo-Jin Lee, the ship's science officer, looked up from his console. "The bioships we've developed with Valix help are advancing faster than anything the Council has seen before. Our newest ships can repair battle damage in minutes." Dong-Soo turned back to the screen. "Bloom of Seasons, what did you tell them?" The Valix leader's eyes glowed brighter. "We told them that humans are our friends. We will not abandon our friends because others are afraid." "The Council won't like that answer," Hai-Jin warned. "No, they will not," Bloom of Seasons agreed. "But the Valix do not break promises to friends. We remember when you saved our colonies from the raiders. We remember when you shared your food during the Great Blight. We remember when you helped us reach the stars." Dong-Soo felt pride and worry fighting in his chest. The Valix were the most loyal friends humans had ever known, but they were also completely peaceful. They had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight back if the Council attacked. "How long do we have?" he asked. 3 days, Bloom of Seasons said. "After that, they say they will come to protect us from human influence." The communication ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Dong-Soo stared at the black screen, thinking hard. The Council had never attacked anyone directly before. They usually used economic pressure or political isolation to get what they wanted. But if they were willing to threaten the Valix, things were more serious than anyone had thought. "Hye-Jin, get me a direct line to Earth Command," Dong-Soo ordered. "Priority 1. While they waited for the connection, Dr. Woo-Jin Lee approached the captain's chair. Sir, there's something else you should know. Our latest intelligence suggests the Council isn't just afraid of our bioships. They're afraid of what comes next. What do you mean? The Valix and human technologies are starting to merge in ways neither species expected. The bioships are learning from our combat experience and evolving new capabilities. Some of our newest vessels can adapt their weapons and defenses in real time during battle. Dong-Su raised his eyebrows. I didn't know we had advanced that far. Most people don't, Wu Jin admitted. The research is classified, but if the Council knows about it, they might see it as a threat to their control over galactic technology. The main screen lit up again, showing Admiral So Young Choi at Earth Command. She was a tough woman who had fought in the border wars. 20 years ago, her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were sharp as steel. Captain Kim, she said without greeting, I assume you've heard about the Valix situation. Yes, ma'am. Bloom of Seasons contacted us directly. Good. I want you to return to Earth immediately. We're calling an emergency session of the High Command. Admiral, shouldn't we be heading to the Valix system to help prepare their defenses? Admiral Choi's expression darkened. Captain, the Valix have no defenses. If the Council decides to attack, there's nothing we can do to stop them with conventional forces. Our only hope is to find a diplomatic solution. But ma'am, that's an order, Captain. Return to Earth immediately. The transmission ended, leaving Dong-Su frustrated and angry. He turned to his navigation officer. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. As the morning star turned toward home, Hye-Jin approached him again. Sir, I don't think diplomacy is going to work this time. Why not? Because this isn't really about the Valix, she explained. It's about us. The Council has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They've always been the ones with the best technology, the strongest fleets, the most advanced civilization. But humans are changing too fast. Dr. Wu Jin Lee nodded in agreement. She's right. In 30 years, we've gone from barely reaching our own moon to having bioships that can outfight Council dreadnoughts. That kind of advancement threatens everything they believe about the natural order. Dong-Su looked out at the stars streaming past the ship. Somewhere out there, his friends were waiting for help that might never come. The Valix had trusted humanity, and now they might die for that trust. How long until we reach Earth? He asked. 18 hours at current speed, replied the navigation officer. 18 hours to figure out how to save the most peaceful species in the galaxy from the most powerful government the universe had ever known. Dong-Su settled back in his chair and began to plan. He didn't know how, but he was going to find a way to help his friends. The bioship Morning Star hummed around him, its living systems responding to his emotional state. The ship could feel his determination, and it began to prepare itself for whatever was coming next. Admiral So Young Choi stood at the head of the long table in Earth's High Command Center. The room was deep underground, protected by layers of steel and stone. Around the table sat the most important military leaders on Earth, their faces grim, in the blue light of the holographic displays. Captain Dong-Su Kim had arrived just hours ago, his ship still cooling in the orbital docks above. He sat near the Admiral, tired from the long journey but alert. Next to him, Commander Hye-Jin Park studied intelligence reports on her tablet. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Choi began, we face the worst crisis in human history. The Galactic Council has issued a final ultimatum. She pressed a button and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed a tall reptilian alien with cold yellow eyes and armor that gleamed like black metal. This was War Commander Krog of the Hegemony, the most powerful military force in the Council. This message was delivered to our embassy 2 hours ago, the Admiral continued. Krog's image began to speak in a harsh, grinding voice. Humans of Earth, your alliance with the Valix ends now. You have 72 hours to withdraw all ships, personnel, and technology from Valix space. Any human vessels found in that system after the deadline will be destroyed. This is not negotiable. The hologram flickered and changed to show massive fleets of alien warships, hundreds of them, moving through space like schools of metal fish. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Intelligence estimates put the Council force at over 200 dreadnoughts, Admiral Choi said. Ships from 6 different species, all under hegemony command. They're already moving toward the Valix system. President Minho Kang, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. He was a small man with kind eyes, but those eyes were hard, as stone today. Admiral, what are our options? Honestly, sir, very few. She touched another control, and the display showed Earth's fleet. We have 47 bioships ready for combat, with another 30 in various stages of growth. Against 200 Council dreadnoughts, we wouldn't last an hour in direct battle. Captain Tae-hyun Yoon of the reconnaissance ship Seoul's Pride raised his hand. Ma'am, I've been monitoring Council communications. This isn't just about stopping our alliance with the Valix. They're calling us a galactic threat. What does that mean? Asked President Kang. Commander Hyjin Park looked up from her tablet. In Council law, a galactic threat can be eliminated by any means necessary. No trial, no negotiation, no mercy. If they officially declare us a threat, they can attack Earth itself. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air systems. Everyone understood what that meant. Earth had 4 billion people. The Council had enough firepower to turn the planet into a ball of molten rock. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee, who had come with Captain Kim, spoke quietly. There's something else. The Council knows about our Phoenix-class bioships. Admiral Choi turned to him sharply. That project is classified at the highest level. How could they know? I don't know, but they do. Some of the intelligence Tae-hyun intercepted mentioned adaptive human vessels and evolutionary technology. They're not just afraid of what we have now. They're afraid of what we might become. President Kang rubbed his temples. Dr. Lee, explain to me exactly what these Phoenix Class A ships can do. Woo Jin looked uncomfortable. The Phoenix Project was the most secret program on Earth, known only to a handful of people. Sir, using advanced Valix biotechnology, we've created ships that can evolve. They learn from every battle, every encounter, every challenge. What defeats them once will never defeat them again. How many do we have? 3 prototypes. But, sir, they're still experimental. We don't know their full capabilities yet. Admiral Choi walked to the window that looked out over the city. Earth looked so peaceful from here with its blue sky and white clouds. It was hard to believe that somewhere in space, alien fleets were preparing to destroy everything humans had built. There's one more thing, she said without turning around. The Council sent a private message to President Kang. They're offering Earth a deal. What kind of deal? The President asked. Abandon the Valix completely. Hand over all biotechnology research. Accept Council oversight of all future human expansion. In return, they'll let Earth exist as a protected species. The words hit the room like a physical blow. Protected species was what the Council called primitive races that needed guidance. It meant giving up independence, giving up freedom, giving up everything that made humanity human. Captain Dong-Soo Kim stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. "With respect, sir, that's not a deal. That's surrender." "Sit down, Captain," Admiral Choi ordered. "No, ma'am. I won't sit down while we discuss abandoning our friends." Dongsu's voice was steady but angry. "The Valix saved my ship and crew 6 months ago when raiders attacked the Kepler station. They didn't ask for anything in return. They helped because that's what friends do." "Captain Kim is right," said Commander Hyojin Park. "If we abandon the Valix now, what message does that send to every other species in the galaxy? That humans can't be trusted? That we'll sacrifice our friends to save ourselves?" President Kang looked around the table at the faces of his advisors. These were good people. People who had spent their lives protecting Earth and humanity, but they were also practical people who understood the reality of their situation. "Admiral Choi," he said finally, "what would happen if we refuse the Council's offer? They'll attack the Valix system in 72 hours. They'll destroy every Valix world, every city, every living thing. Then they'll come for us. And if we accept, the Valix die anyway. The Council can't let them live after they've seen our technology. But Earth survives." The President stood up and walked to join the Admiral at the window. Below them, people went about their daily lives, unaware that their world hung in the balance. "How long do we have to decide?" he asked. "The deadline is absolute. 72 hours. President Kang was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was firm. "Admiral, I want you to prepare our fleet for deployment to the Valix system. Sir, I strongly advise against that course of action." "I'm not asking for advice, Admiral. I'm giving you an order." He turned to face the room. "Earth will not abandon its friends. We will not bow to threats, and we will not give up our freedom because others demand it." Admiral Choi nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. I'll begin preparations immediately." "Good. And Admiral, activate the Phoenix Project. I want those 3 ships ready for combat in 48 hours. "Sir, they're still experimental. Then it's time to test them." President Kang looked back out the window. "Gentlemen, ladies, we may be about to start a war we can't win. But some things are worth fighting for, even if the odds are impossible." As the meeting broke up, Captain Dongsu Kim caught Admiral Choi's arm. "Ma'am, there's something you should know. The bioships are responding to our emotions about this situation. They're preparing themselves." "What do you mean?" "I mean they know we're going to fight, and they're getting ready for war." Captain Jiwon Nam gripped the arms of his command chair as the Guardian's Hope dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valix system. What he saw through the viewscreen made his blood turn to ice. The beautiful garden worlds of the Valix were burning. "Report," he managed to say, his voice barely a whisper. "Lieutenant Sung Min." Oh looked up from his sensor station, his face pale. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Council dreadnoughts are... they're bombarding every planet." Jiwon watched in horror as beams of pure energy lanced down from the alien ships. Where they touched the surface of the Valix worlds, everything simply vanished. The great living cities that had taken centuries to grow were turned to ash in seconds. "How many Council ships?" he asked. 237, sir. They have the entire system surrounded." The Guardian's Hope was alone, sent ahead of the main Earth fleet to assess the situation. Jiwon had hoped to find the Valix defending themselves, maybe holding out until human reinforcements arrived. Instead, he was witnessing genocide. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Eugene Park, "I'm picking up a transmission from the surface of Kepler 442b. It's Bloom of Seasons." "Put it through." The main screen flickered, showing the interior of what looked like a burning forest. Bloom of Seasons stood among the flames, his bark-like skin charred and cracked. Behind him, smaller Valeks were trying to evacuate their young, Hadan. "Nam!" the Valeks leader said, his musical voice now harsh with pain. "You should not have come. It is too late for us. Bloom of Seasons, we're here to help. The Earth fleet is—" "No!" The old Valeks raised a branch-like hand. "Do not bring your ships here. This is not a battle you can win. The council came without warning, without negotiation. They began firing the moment they arrived." Jiwan could see explosions in the background as more energy beams struck the planet. "How long ago did the attack begin?" 6 hours. They are being thorough. Every city, every settlement, every place where our people live, they want to be certain none survive. "Sir," Lieutenant O called out urgently, 3 council ships are moving toward our position. I think they've spotted us." Jiwan looked at the tactical display. The alien ships were much larger than the Guardians' Hope, their weapons already charging. "Sung Min, how many Valeks can we evacuate?" "Maybe 300, sir. But only if we leave now." It wasn't enough. There were 12 billion Valeks in the system, spread across dozens of worlds. 300 was nothing, but it was something. "Do it," Jiwan ordered. "Emergency evacuation. Take anyone you can find." The Guardian's Hope dove toward the nearest Valeks colony world. The bioship's living hull began to glow as it prepared for atmospheric entry. Behind them, the council ships were closing fast. Lieutenant O worked frantically at his controls. "Sir, I've located a group of survivors near the northern continent. About 200 Valeks, mostly children. Get us there." The ship shuddered as it hit the atmosphere. Through the view screen, Jiwan could see the devastation below. What had once been a world covered in beautiful gardens was now a landscape of fire and ash. The great tree cities lay in ruins, their organic architecture burned beyond recognition. They landed near a group of young Valeks who were huddled around their teachers. The adult Valeks were badly burned, but still trying to protect their students. Jiwan sent every available crew member to help with the evacuation. "Sir," Yujin called from the communication station, "Bloom of Seasons is transmitting again." The screen showed the Valeks leader, now barely able to stand. The forest around him was almost completely destroyed. "Captain Nam, you must tell your people something important." "I'm listening." "This was not just about stopping our alliance. We intercepted some council communications before our receivers were destroyed. They planned this as a lesson, a message, to show other species what happens when they choose to work with humans." Jiwan felt sick. "They're killing your entire race to send a message?" "Yes. And Captain, they spoke of Earth next. When they finish here, they plan to demand your complete surrender. If you refuse—" Bloom of Seasons gestured at the burning world around him. "Sir," Lieutenant O interrupted, "the council ships are in weapons range. We need to leave now." "Load the last group," Jiwan ordered. "Sungmin, how many did we get?" 193 survivors, sir. That's all we could fit." It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But Jiwan knew they had to go. If the Guardian's Hope was destroyed, even those few Valeks would die. "Bloom of Seasons," he said to the screen. "We won't forget this. I promise. We won't forget." The old Valek smiled sadly. "Tell your Admiral Choi that the gardens we grew together were beautiful. Tell her that friendship was worth the price we paid. And tell her—" his voice grew weaker. "Tell her that the seeds We gave you will grow into something the Council never expected. The transmission cut off just as energy beams struck the area where Bloom of Seasons had been standing. Ji-Wan closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them to face his duty. "Take us out of here," he ordered. The Guardian's Hope lifted off just as the Council ships opened fire. The bioship's living hull absorbed most of the damage, healing itself as they climbed toward space. But Ji-Wan could feel the ship's pain through his neural link. The vessel was mourning, too. As they jumped to hyperspace, Ji-Wan took one last look at the Valix system. What had been a collection of garden worlds was now just burning rocks floating in space. 12 billion peaceful beings dead because they had chosen to be friends with humanity. In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Hana Kim was treating the Valix survivors. Most were young, their bark-like skin scarred by the fires. They didn't understand what had happened to their world, why the pretty lights in the sky had brought such destruction. "Captain," Dr. Kim called over the intercom, "you need to see this." Ji-Wan made his way to the medical bay. Dr. Kim was examining one of the adult Valix, an old teacher named Gentle Rain. "What is it, doctor?" "Look at this." She showed him her scanner readings. "The Valix who survived aren't just refugees, sir. They're carrying something." "Carrying what?" "Seeds. Genetic material. The complete biological heritage of their species." Dr. Kim's voice was filled with wonder. "Gentle Rain tells me that every adult Valix carries these seeds, just in case something like this ever happened." Ji-Wan looked at the peaceful aliens in the medical bay. Even in their darkest hour, even facing extinction, they had thought ahead. They had prepared for their children to continue somewhere else. "Doctor, how many different seed types do we have?" "Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. Enough to regrow their entire civilization if we can find a safe place for them." As the Guardian's Hope raced toward Earth with its precious cargo, Ji-Wan sent a message ahead to Admiral Choi. The Valix were gone, but they weren't truly extinct. Not yet. And if humanity had anything to say about it, they never would be. But first, there would be justice for what the Council had done. Ji-Wan looked at the tactical display showing Earth's fleet moving toward them. Soon the Council would learn that some crimes could never be forgiven. The bioship around him hummed with new purpose. It had felt the death of the Valix worlds, felt the pain of their allies' destruction. Now it was angry, and it was preparing for war. The news hit Earth like a physical blow. In every city, on every continent, people stopped what they were doing to watch the reports coming in from the Valix system. The images were horrible. Burning worlds, destroyed cities, and the gentle, plant-like beings who had been humanity's closest friends, reduced to ash and memory. General Jae-Sung Ko stood outside the military recruitment center in Seoul, watching the line of volunteers that stretched for 6 blocks. Young and old, men and women, they all had the same look in their eyes. Rage. Cold, burning rage that demanded justice. "Sir," his aide said, approaching with a tablet. "The recruitment numbers from around the globe." Jae-Sung looked at the figures and whistled softly. 2 million volunteers in the first day? "Yes, sir. The recruitment centers are overwhelmed. People are sleeping on the streets just to wait in line." Among those in line was Dr. Woo-Jin Lee. The quiet scientist had abandoned his research laboratory to join the military. His hands, which had spent years gently working with Valix biotechnology, now clenched into fists as he waited to sign up for combat duty. "Doctor," said the recruitment officer when Woo-Jin finally reached the front of the line. Your skills would be better used in research and development. No, Wu Jin replied firmly. The Valix shared their greatest secrets with us. They trusted us with technology that could change the galaxy. Now they're dead because of that trust. I'm going to make sure their gifts are used to destroy the ones who killed them. Across the city, in the underground shipyards beneath the Pacific Ocean, engineer Yuri Song was working around the clock. The bioship construction bays were alive, with activity as thousands of workers tended to the growing vessels. How many can we produce in a month? Admiral So Young Choi asked as she toured the facility. At this rate? Maybe 50 new bioships, Yuri replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. But Admiral, these aren't just ships we're building. Each one is grown from Valix seeds that survived the massacre. Every vessel is a living memorial to our dead friends. The Admiral stopped beside one of the newer ships. Its hull pulsed with a soft green light, and she could almost feel its awareness through the bio-neural links that connected it to the human operators. They know, don't they? She said quietly. The ships know what happened to the Valix. Yes, ma'am, and they're angry. Angrier than we've ever seen bioships before. The new ones are growing faster, stronger, with capabilities we never programmed into them. Admiral Choi moved to the next construction bay, where the largest bioship anyone had ever seen was taking shape. This was the Vengeance, flagship of what Earth was calling the Retribution fleet. When will she be ready? The Admiral asked. 3 days, ma'am. But Admiral, she's not like the other bioships. She's something new, something we've never seen before. The Vengeance was massive, easily twice the size of a normal bioship. But more than that, she seemed aware in a way that made humans uncomfortable. Her hull shifted and moved like a living thing, which it was, but there was an intelligence behind those movements that felt almost alien. The Valix genetic material is reacting to our human technology in unexpected ways, Yuri explained. It's like the ship is evolving on its own, developing new systems and capabilities without any input from us. Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim, recently promoted to command the new fleet, approached the Vengeance and placed his hand on her hull. The bioship's surface warmed under his touch, and he could feel something like recognition flowing through the neural link. She wants to fight, he said simply. Sir? The ship. She wants to fight. She wants revenge for what happened to the Valix. Dong-Soo looked up at the massive vessel growing above them. How many bioships will we have ready for the first mission? 15, sir. All armed with the new adaptive weapon systems that Dr. Lee developed. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee had taken his grief and anger and channeled it into creating weapons that would have horrified him just weeks ago. Using Valix biotechnology, he had designed weapon systems that could adapt and evolve during combat, learning from every enemy they faced. The projectiles are alive, he explained to a group of military officers. They study enemy shields and armor, then modify themselves to be more effective. What protects an enemy ship once will never protect it again. Captain Tae-hyun Yoon, now commanding the bio-destroyer Wrath, was among the officers listening to the briefing. Doctor, what about defensive systems? Even better, Woo-Jin smiled grimly. The bioships can adapt their hull composition in real time. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, even exotic matter attacks. The ships learn to resist them all. How is that possible? The Valix were master geneticists. Their technology doesn't just use DNA. It writes new DNA on the fly, creating new biological solutions to any problem. Woo-Jin's voice grew quiet. They gave us gifts beyond imagination, and the Council killed them for it. In the Intelligence Center, deep beneath Earth's capital, Commander Hyojin Park was coordinating with resistance movements throughout Council space. The news of the Valix genocide had shocked many species who had thought the Council was a force for peace. "Admiral," she reported to So Young Choi, "we're getting messages from 12 different worlds. Species that were forced to join the Council are starting to rebel." "What kind of rebellion?" "Mostly passive resistance so far. Refusing to provide resources, delaying shipments, accidentally jamming communications. But some are asking for direct military support." Admiral Choi studied the star charts showing Council territory. "What about the hegemony homeworlds?" "Still fully loyal, ma'am. But their client species are getting nervous. No one wants to be the next example the Council makes." President Minho Kang entered the command center, his face grim. He had aged years in the past week, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "Admiral, what's the status of our fleet?" 15 bioships ready for combat, sir. Another 30 will be ready within the month. But, sir, I have to ask, what exactly are we planning to do with them?" The President looked at the tactical displays showing Council fleet movements. War Commander Krog's forces were consolidating around the hegemony core worlds, probably expecting a direct assault on their capital. "We're not going to attack their capital," President Kang said quietly. "We're going to do something they won't expect." "Sir, we're going to show the galaxy that the Council isn't invincible, that they can be defeated, that their victims can fight back and win." He turned to face the room full of officers. "The Valix believed in growth, in nurturing, in making things better. The Council believes in control, in domination, in keeping others down." "What's our first target?" Admiral Choi asked. "Their newest conquest, the Theta Eridani system. 3 months ago they forced the local species into submission. Time to set them free." As the meeting ended, Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim returned to the Vengeance. The massive bioship was nearly complete, her hull gleaming with an inner light that seemed to pulse with barely contained energy. He placed his hand on the neural interface and felt the ship's consciousness touch his mind. What he felt there made him step back in surprise. The Vengeance wasn't just angry, she was hunting. She had inherited not just Valix biotechnology, but human fury and determination. "What are you?" he whispered. The answer came not in words, but in images and emotions. The ship showed him burning Valix worlds, then Council ships exploding in space. She showed him fear in the eyes of alien warriors who had thought themselves unstoppable. The Vengeance was evolution itself, given form and purpose. She was what happened when the peaceful genius of the Valix merged with the protective rage of humanity. And she was ready to teach the galaxy a new lesson about the price of genocide. The Theta Eridani system had been peaceful for 1,000 years before the Council arrived. The Kalari people were artists and philosophers, their floating cities drifting through the gas giant's upper atmosphere like beautiful clouds. Then War Commander Krog's forces had come, demanding submission to Council authority. Now Captain Tae-hyun Yoon watched those same cities through the view screen of the Wrath as his bio-destroyer drifted silently through space. But the cities were different now. Dark, lifeless. The Council had installed their own governors and turned the artistic Kalari into workers for their industrial complexes. "Target acquired," reported Lieutenant Bo-Ra Han from the tactical station. "Council orbital platform, heavily armed. 15 ships docked, including 2 dreadnoughts." Tae-hyun studied the enemy formation. The Council forces looked impressive, their ships bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. but they were designed to fight conventional enemies, who used conventional tactics. "Siok Jin, are you in position?" he asked over the communications link. Commander Siok Jin Bey's voice crackled back from his stealth ship Shadow. "Affirmative! I'm inside their sensor grid. They have no idea we're here." The Shadow was one of the new bioships, designed for infiltration and intelligence gathering. Its hull could mimic the background radiation of space, making it effectively invisible to most sensors. "What's their defensive setup?" Tae-hyun asked. "Predictable," Seok-jin replied. "Energy shields, point defense weapons, standard council doctrine. They're not expecting anything they haven't seen before." That was about to change. The Wrath and her sister ships represented a completely new type of warfare, one that the Council's rigid military thinking couldn't comprehend. "All ships, begin the hunt," Tae-hyun ordered. The bioships moved like living predators stalking their prey. Their hulls shifted color and texture to blend with the asteroid field they had been hiding in. To Council sensors, they looked like floating rocks, harmless debris drifting through space. Captain Mi-young Shin commanded the bio-cruiser Fury as it approached the largest Council dreadnought. Her ship's hull was already adapting, growing specialized organs that would allow it to interface directly with enemy systems. "Target the command ship first," came Fleet Admiral Dong-soo Kim's voice from the Vengeance. "We want to capture their officers alive." "Understood, sir." Mi-young watched as her ship extended tendrils of living matter toward the Council vessel. The biotechnology was beyond anything the aliens had ever encountered. Instead of trying to blast through the enemy's armor, the tendrils found microscopic gaps and began to grow inside the ship's hull. "What are you doing to them?" asked her science officer, Dr. Hana Kim. "Something the Valix taught us," Mi-young replied. "We're not destroying their ship, we're taking it over." Inside the Council dreadnought, alarms began to ring as strange organic growths appeared throughout the vessel. The biotendrils were mapping the ship's systems, learning how everything worked, then gently shutting down weapons and life support in selected areas. Admiral Vextar, the hegemony commander of the orbital defense, stared in horror at his tactical displays. "What's happening to the Dominator?" "Unknown, sir," his aide replied, his scaled hands trembling over the controls. "Something is growing inside the ship. Our weapons won't fire, and we're losing life support on multiple decks." Launch fighters. All of them. The Council fighter. Squadron launched from the orbital platform, their sleek ships racing toward the approaching bio-vessels. But as they closed the distance, something impossible happened. The bio-ships began to change. Captain Tae-hyun watched in amazement as the Wrath sprouted new weapon pods along its hull. The ship was adapting in real time, creating defensive systems specifically designed to counter the incoming fighters. "Sir," reported his weapons officer, "the ship is generating its own ammunition. Organic projectiles that can track and pursue targets." "Let her hunt," Tae-hyun said. The bio-ship released a swarm of living missiles, each one the size of a small fighter but infinitely more clever. They moved like insects, swarming around the Council fighters, adapting to every evasive maneuver. One by one, the enemy fighters fell, but the bio-missiles didn't destroy them. They captured them, wrapping around the small ships and gently forcing them to land in the Wrath's expanded hangar bays. "Admiral," came a panicked transmission from one of the Council ships. "The humans aren't trying to destroy us. They're taking us apart piece by piece." Admiral Vextar watched his fleet being systematically neutralized by an enemy force a quarter of its size. The human bioships moved like nothing he had ever seen, flowing around his formations like water, adapting to every defense he could mount. "Sir," his communications officer called out. "The humans are transmitting. Put it through." Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm, almost sad. "Admiral Vextar, I am offering you one chance to surrender." "Humans do not dictate terms to the Council," Vextar snarled. "Look at your tactical display, Admiral. Really look at it." Vextar glanced at his screens and felt his blood turn cold. In the 15 minutes since the battle began, he had lost 13 ships without destroying a single human vessel. His remaining forces were surrounded by bioships that seemed to grow stronger with every passing moment. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The Valix were our friends," Dong-Soo said quietly. "They taught us that war doesn't have to mean destruction. Sometimes it means adaptation. Evolution, becoming something better than what you were." As if to demonstrate his point, one of the bioships began to glow. Its hull was absorbing energy from the Council weapons firing at it, then redirecting that energy to accelerate its own growth and development. "Your ships are learning," Vextar said in horrified fascination. "Every shot you fire at them makes them stronger. Every tactic you try teaches them something new. The Valix gave us the gift of infinite adaptation." Dong-Soo's voice hardened. "And you killed them for it." The final Council ship, a massive dreadnought that had been trying to escape, suddenly found itself wrapped in biotendrils from 3 different directions. The living cables didn't damage the ship. They simply held it in place while smaller organisms began to interface with its computer systems. "We're being hacked," the dreadnought's captain reported. "But it's not electronic. It's biological. Something is literally eating our data systems and replacing them." Within an hour, the entire Council force in the Theta Eridani system had been captured or neutralized. Not a single human life had been lost, and civilian casualties were 0. The bioships had fought with surgical precision, targeting only military assets while carefully protecting the orbital cities. Commander Seok Jin Bei's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, I've accessed the Council databases. You're going to want to see this." "What did you find?" "Complete records of the Valix operation, names, dates, orders, and something else. A list of other species marked for protective intervention. If they don't comply with Council demands." Tae-hyun felt sick. "How many species?" 47. The Council was planning to make examples of all of them. Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at the captured. "Council fleet, the bioships had done more than win a battle. They had demonstrated a completely new form of warfare, one based on adaptation rather than destruction." "Send a message to Admiral Choi," he ordered. "Tell her the hunt has begun, and send copies of these Council records to every species in the galaxy. Let them see what the Council really had planned for them." As the message raced through space, something fundamental shifted in the galactic balance of power. For the first time in centuries, the Council had been defeated in open battle, and not by superior firepower or larger fleets, but by something they couldn't understand or counter. The bioships began to tend to their prisoners, offering medical aid and decent treatment. Many of the captured Council soldiers had never experienced mercy from an enemy before. They watched in confusion as human medics treated their wounds and human engineers repaired their life support systems. "Why?" asked one captured hegemony officer. "Why don't you kill us?" Captain Mi-young-shin looked at the alien soldier with sad eyes. "Because that's not who we are. The Valix taught us that every life has value, even the lives of our enemies. We fight to protect, not to destroy. But we killed your allies. We committed genocide. Yes, and you'll face justice for that. But justice doesn't mean becoming monsters ourselves." As the human fleet prepared to move to their next target, the captured Council forces were left with something they had never experienced before: hope that their enemies might be better than they were. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee stood in the bio-laboratory aboard the Vengeance, watching something that should have been impossible. The captured Council weapons and armor samples were being dissolved by Valix bioorganisms, their molecular structure analyzed and understood in real time. "Show me again," he said to his assistant, Dr. Hana Kim. She activated the holographic display, showing the breakdown of a hegemony plasma rifle. "The bioorganisms don't just study the technology, sir. They learn how to counter it, then share that information with every bio-ship in the fleet instantaneously." "How instantaneously?" "Watch this." Hana triggered a simulation where a Council energy beam struck one of their bio-ships. The first hit caused moderate damage. The second hit caused less damage. The third hit was completely absorbed. By the fourth shot, the ship has not only adapted to resist the weapon, but has learned how to use its energy to accelerate its own growth. Wu Jin shook his head in amazement. "The Valix genetic matrix is more advanced than we ever imagined. It's not just biological. It's a form of distributed intelligence that can evolve solutions faster than any computer. Sir, there's something else. The bioships are starting to develop capabilities we never programmed into them." She showed him sensor readings from the latest battle. "Look at this. The Wrath spontaneously generated a new weapon system. Something that fires concentrated bursts of accelerated biological matter. Captain Yoon had no idea his ship could do that until it happened." "Directed evolution," Wu Jin murmured. "The ships are evolving in response to combat stress, developing new abilities, based on immediate tactical needs." Admiral So Young Choi's voice came over the intercom. "Dr. Lee, report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation." Wu Jin made his way to the command center, where Admiral Choi was studying tactical displays with Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim. The screens showed the Nexus Prime system, heart of Council military power. "Doctor," Admiral Choi said without turning around, "how confident are you in the bioship's adaptive capabilities?" "Very confident, ma'am." "Why?" "Because we're about to test them against the most heavily defended system in the galaxy." The display zoomed in to show Nexus Prime, a massive fortress world surrounded by layers of defensive platforms, shield generators, and weapon arrays. Thousands of Council ships patrolled the system in complex patterns. "That's the Council's primary military headquarters," Dong-Soo explained. "If we can take it, we cripple their ability to coordinate galaxy-wide operations." "What kind of defenses are we looking at?" Wu Jin asked. Captain Yoon-ji Lim, recently arrived from Earth with the second wave of bioships, pulled up detailed intelligence reports. "Planetary shields that can stop supernova-level energy bursts. Gravitational weapons that can tear ships apart at the molecular level. Exotic matter projectors that can phase-shift attacks into parallel dimensions." "In other words," Admiral Choi said grimly, "everything they've learned from 10,000 years of galactic warfare." Wu Jin studied the defensive layout. The Council had built their fortress assuming they would face conventional enemies using conventional tactics, but the bioships were anything but conventional. "Admiral, I think we can do this, but not the way you're thinking." "Explain." "We don't attack the defenses. We become part of them." Over the next 6 hours, Dr. Woo Jin Lee worked with the Bioship Collective Intelligence to develop a plan that would have been impossible with any other technology. Instead of trying to blast through Nexus Prime's defenses, the bioships would infiltrate them. Captain Mi Young-shin watched from the Bridge of the Fury as the human fleet approached the Council fortress. Her ship had changed dramatically since their first battle. The hull was now covered in specialized organs that could interface with almost any technology, and the ship's consciousness had grown more sophisticated with each engagement. Beginning. Infiltration protocol, she announced. The bioships began to shed microscopic organisms into space, tiny biological units that looked like space dust to most sensors. These organisms drifted through the defensive grid, carried by solar winds and gravitational currents. "What are they doing?" asked War Commander Krog from his command center on Nexus Prime. He had been watching the human fleet for hours, waiting for them to attack. "Unknown, sir," his intelligence officer replied. "They appear to be dispersing some kind of biological material." "Biological weapons?" "No, sir. The organisms are too small to cause harm to living beings. They seem to be studying our defensive systems." Krog felt a chill run down his armored spine. "Studying them how?" "They're interfacing with our sensors, our computers, our weapon targeting systems. It's like they're learning how everything works." On the Vengeance, Dr. Woo-Jin Lee monitored the infiltration through his neural link with the ship's biocomputer. The tiny organisms were mapping the entire defensive grid, finding weaknesses and sending the information back to the fleet. "Admiral," he reported, "we've identified the control nodes for their entire defensive network. The Council uses a centralized command system. If we can take control of the primary nodes, we can turn their own defenses against them." "How long do we need?" "The bioorganisms are already in position. We can begin the takeover whenever you're ready." Admiral Choi looked at Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim. "Your call, Admiral." Dong-Soo placed his hand on the Vengeance's neural interface. He could feel the massive bioship's eagerness to begin the battle, her consciousness burning with controlled. "Fury, execute," he ordered. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries. The microscopic bioorganisms suddenly activated, not as weapons, but as reprogramming agents. They began rewriting the defensive grid's control software, not with computer code, but with biological instructions that the systems had never been designed to resist. Within minutes, the impregnable fortress of Nexus Prime found its own weapons. Turning inward, shield generators began creating openings for the human fleet. Gravitational weapons started targeting Council ships instead of human ones. The exotic matter projectors began phase-shifting the Council's own ammunition into parallel dimensions. "This is impossible," Krog snarled as his tactical displays showed his defenses systematically betraying him. "How are they doing this?" "Sir," his aide said in a shaking voice, "the humans aren't using technology we understand. They're using biology as a programming language. Our computers are being infected by living organisms that rewrite their basic functions." Captain Yoonji Lim led the assault through the gaps in the defensive grid. Her bioship, the Justice, had evolved specialized systems for this exact type of battle. The ship could interface directly with enemy technology, turning captured systems into extensions of its own consciousness. "Target the command center," came Dong-Soo's voice over the communications link. "But remember, we want Krog alive." The bioships flowed through the defensive grid like water through a sieve, their hulls adapting to each new weapon that fired at them. A plasma cannon that scored a hit on the Fury only taught the ship how to absorb and redirect plasma energy. Kinetic weapons that struck the Wrath showed it how to harden its hull to turn projectiles into harmless dust. War Commander Krog found himself trapped in his own command center as biotendrils began growing through the walls. The living cables didn't damage the structure. They simply took control of it, gently shutting down weapon systems and securing critical personnel. "Surrender," came a voice through the command center's speakers. It was Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim, speaking from somewhere in the chaos above. Your fortress is compromised, your fleet is neutralized, and your weapons are under our control. The Council will never surrender to primitives, Krog spat. Look around you, War Commander. Your primitive enemies have just captured the most heavily defended system in the galaxy without firing a single shot. How primitive does that make your defenses? As Krog watched his tactical displays, he saw the truth of those words. The human bioships had not just defeated his forces, they had absorbed them, turning the Council's own military might against itself. The Valix taught us that war doesn't have to mean destruction, Dong-Soo continued. Sometimes it means evolution. Your people committed genocide against our friends. Now you'll face justice for that crime, but we won't become monsters to defeat monsters. Within hours, the entire Nexus Prime system was under human control. The bioships had accomplished something no military force in galactic history had ever managed: the complete capture of the Council's primary fortress without significant casualties on either side. As Council officers were taken into custody, many of them couldn't hide their amazement at how they had been defeated. The humans had not just outfought them, they had out-evolved them, adapting faster than any static defense could counter. Dr. Wu Jin Lee stood in what had been War Commander, Krog's private office, now converted into a temporary laboratory. Around him, bioorganisms were interfacing with Council databases, downloading thousands of years of military intelligence. "What have we learned?" Admiral Choi asked. "Everything," Wu Jin replied with grim satisfaction. "Every Council military installation, every fleet position, every planned operation, the bioorganisms have absorbed their entire strategic database, and..." The galaxy held its breath as Earth's biofleet surrounded Hegemonia, the Council's capital world. For 10,000 years, this system had been the center of galactic power. Now it was under siege by ships that moved like living creatures and thought like predators. President Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking out at the blue-green world below. Billions of beings lived on that planet, most of them innocent civilians who had never participated in the Council's crimes. But somewhere in the gleaming towers of the capital city, the leaders who had ordered the Valix genocide were hiding. "Status report," he said to Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim. "All bioships are in position, sir. The planetary defense grid has been neutralized without casualties. We control all orbital platforms and have disabled their communications array." "What about the Council leadership?" Commander Hai-Jin Park looked up from her intelligence station. "Most of the Council members are in the Grand Assembly building. They're demanding to negotiate." "After what they did to the Valix?" "President." Kang's voice was cold. "There's nothing to negotiate." The main screen activated, showing the interior of the Council chambers. Dozens of alien representatives sat in tiered seating around a central platform. At the center stood Chancellor Vorthak of the Hegemony, his reptilian features twisted with rage and fear. "Humans," Vorthak hissed, "you have committed an act of war against the legitimate government of this galaxy. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." "The consequences?" President Kang stepped forward. "Like the consequences the Valix faced? 12 billion peaceful beings murdered because they chose to be our friends?" The Valix were corrupted by human influence. Their elimination was necessary to preserve galactic stability. The words hit the bridge like a physical blow. Every human present felt the same cold fury that had driven them across the galaxy. "Corrupted," Admiral So-Young Choi repeated quietly. "You call friendship corruption. Show them," President Kang ordered. The main screen split, showing both the council chambers and recordings from the Valix massacre. The alien leaders watched in uncomfortable silence as their own ships systematically destroyed the Garden Worlds. "This is what you call preservation of stability," Kang continued. "The complete extermination of a peaceful species whose only crime was trusting humanity." Some of the council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Not all of them had known the full extent of what was planned for the Valix. Representative Zithara of the Kelvani Collective raised a tentacled appendage. The actions taken against the Valix were regrettable, but they were necessary to prevent the spread of dangerous human technology. Dangerous? Dr. Wu Jin Lee stepped into view. The Valix technology we shared was designed to heal, to grow, to create. The only thing dangerous about it was that it offered hope to species you wanted to keep oppressed. "Your bioships prove our point," Chancellor Vorthax snarled. "You have turned peaceful technology into weapons of war." "We turned your victims' gifts into tools of justice," President Kang corrected. "Every bioship in our fleet carries the genetic legacy of the Valix. They are living memorials to your crimes." As if responding to his words, the bioships around the planet began to pulse with soft green light, the same light that had once illuminated the Valix garden cities before. They were burned to ash, Captain Mi Young-shin reported from the Fury. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from rebel groups throughout Council space. 47 worlds have declared independence in the last 6 hours. "Which worlds?" "All the ones that were marked for protective intervention in the Council databases. They've seen the evidence of what was planned for them." On the planet below, massive demonstrations were forming in the major cities. Species that had been forced into Council membership were taking to the streets, demanding freedom and justice for the Valix. Admiral Kyung-suk Yang's voice came over the communications system from the outer system. "Admiral Kim, I'm detecting fleet movements from the hegemony core worlds. It looks like War Commander Sektar is bringing reinforcements." "How many ships?" 500, sir, mostly dreadnoughts and battlecruisers. President Kang looked at the tactical display. Even with their advanced bioships, those were overwhelming odds. But as he watched, something unexpected happened. Captain Tae Hyun-yoon's voice crackled over the radio from the Wrath. "Sir, I'm getting surrender signals from 18 ships in the incoming fleet. Their crews are refusing to fight." "Refusing?" "Yes, sir. Apparently word of what really happened to the Valix has spread through their military. Some of their officers are calling it genocide and refusing to participate in covering it up. The hegemony fleet began to break apart as ships peeled away from the main formation. Some headed for neutral space, while others actually moved to join the human forces." War Commander Sektar's furious voice came over the communications array. "Deserters and cowards. You betray the natural order of the galaxy," Captain Yoonji Lim responded from the Justice. "The natural order doesn't include committing genocide, War Commander. Your own people are figuring that out." As the crisis unfolded, President Kang made a decision that would reshape galactic politics forever. He opened a broadcast channel that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," he began, "for 10,000 years you have been told that the Council represents order, stability, and peace. Today, I show you what that peace really cost." The broadcast showed the complete intelligence files captured from Nexus Prime. Not just the Valix genocide, but decades of planned interventions against species that showed too much independence or technological advancement. "The Council didn't just kill the Valix," Kang continued. They planned to kill hundreds of other species, anyone who might eventually challenge their control, anyone who might offer a different way of living. The reaction was immediate and galaxy-wide. On world after world, populations that had accepted council rule out of fear began to demand explanations from their leaders. Back in the council chambers, Chancellor Vorthak was facing a rebellion among his own members. Representatives from dozens of species were demanding answers, their voices rising in anger and disbelief. "You told us the Valix were a threat," accused Representative Moltar of the Thesian Union. "You said they were developing weapons." "They were developing weapons," Vorthak insisted. "Biological weapons that could—" "They were developing healing technology," Dr. Wu Jin Lee interrupted over the communication link. "Bioships that could repair themselves, medical treatments that could cure genetic diseases, agricultural systems that could feed entire worlds. The only weapon they ever made was friendship with humanity." The truth was spreading through the council chambers like wildfire. Representative after representative stood to denounce the Valix operation, claiming they had been misled about its necessity. President Kang watched the chaos with grim satisfaction. "Admiral Kim, prepare boarding parties. I want every council member who voted for the Valix genocide taken into custody. Sir, some of them are claiming they didn't know the full extent of the operation. Then they'll have a chance to prove that in court. But the ones who planned and ordered genocide will face justice." As human forces began to land on Hegemonia, something unprecedented happened. The planetary population began to welcome them. Species that had been oppressed under council rule saw the humans not as conquerors, but as liberators. War Commander Sektar made one last desperate attempt to rally his forces. "All loyal ships, converge on the capital. We must preserve the council at all costs." But his call was answered by fewer than 50 vessels. The rest of his fleet had either surrendered or fled to neutral space. The council's own military was abandoning them. In the Grand Assembly building, Chancellor Vorthak made a final speech to his dwindling supporters. "The humans will destroy the galactic order. Without the Council's guidance, civilization will collapse into chaos." President Kang's voice echoed through the chamber. "The only chaos here is the chaos you created when you decided that genocide was an acceptable tool of policy. The Valix trusted you to protect galactic peace. Instead, you murdered them for choosing their own friends." As human soldiers surrounded the building, Vorthak looked around at the empty seats where his supporters had once sat. Most of the council members had fled or switched sides. The 10,000-year reign of the Galactic Council was ending, not with a battle, but with its own members abandoning it. "This isn't over," Vorthak hissed as human soldiers entered the chamber. "You're right," President Kang replied. "It's not over, because now the galaxy gets to see what happens when people are free to choose their own destiny instead of having it dictated by others." As the last council holdouts were taken into custody, representatives from dozens of worlds began arriving at Hegemonia, not to negotiate with the old council, but to discuss what kind of new government might replace it. The age of the Galactic Council was ending, but the age of something better, something based on cooperation instead of domination, was just beginning. And in the bioships orbiting the planet, the consciousness born from Valix wisdom and human determination pulsed with quiet satisfaction. Justice for their murdered friends was finally within reach. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Council, Commander Hyojin Park stood in what had once been a field of ash and glass. Now, green shoots pushed through the soil, and young trees swayed in the gentle breeze of Kepler 442b. The first Valix memorial world was coming back to life. "The atmospheric processors are working perfectly," reported Dr. Woo Jin Lee, kneeling beside a sapling that glowed with the same soft light as the old Valix cities. "The bioship's atmospheric organs have restored the oxygen levels to pre-massacre conditions." Hyejin touched the bark of the young tree, feeling the warmth of life returning to this scarred world. "How many Valix genetic patterns were we able to recover?" "Almost all of them," Wu Jin said with quiet pride. "The survivors who escaped with Captain Nam carried complete genetic libraries. We can restore every plant, every architectural pattern, every living system that made their worlds beautiful." In the distance, the bioship Remembrance hovered over a newly planted grove. Its hull pulsed with green light as it tended to the growing forest. Its consciousness merged with the plant networks below. The ship was both gardener and guardian, protecting the new growth from any threat. "Any word from the outer colonies?" Hyejin asked. 3 more Valix survivors were found on Rigel 7 last week," Wu Jin replied. "That brings the total to almost 2,000. Small numbers, but enough to rebuild their civilization if they choose to." "Do they want to rebuild?" "Some do. Others prefer to live among the memorial gardens, tending to the new growth. They say it helps them feel close to the friends they lost." On the orbiting command station, Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim was meeting with representatives from the Free Species Alliance. The organization had grown from a handful of rebel worlds to include over 300 star systems, all united by their rejection of the Council's authoritarian model. "Admiral," said Ambassador Zethai of the former Council world Tarnaxis, "the war crimes trials are proceeding smoothly. Former Chancellor Vorthak has been found guilty on all charges." "What was his sentence?" "Life imprisonment, with the requirement that he spend his time helping to restore one of the Valix memorial worlds." The court felt that making him see the consequences of his actions would be more meaningful than simple execution. Dong-Soo nodded. Justice for the Valix had been swift but fair. The leaders who had ordered the genocide faced appropriate punishment, while those who had been misled or coerced were given chances to make amends. What about War Commander Krog? He chose exile to the Rim worlds rather than face trial. We're monitoring him, but he seems to have genuinely renounced his former beliefs. Through the station's viewports, Dong-Soo could see the bioship fleet that now protected the Free Species Alliance. The vessels had continued to evolve, becoming more sophisticated and capable with each passing year. But more importantly, they had become symbols of hope throughout the galaxy. Captain Mi-young Shin commanded the newest bioship, the Unity, as it patrolled the borders between Alliance space and the remnants of the old Council territories. Her ship was a marvel of bioengineering, capable of both fierce combat and delicate reconstruction work. "Captain," reported her science officer, "we're receiving a distress call from the Helios system. The local government is asking for assistance with a food shortage." "What kind of assistance?" "They want to know if we can help them establish bioagricultural systems like the ones the Valix used." Mi-young smiled. This was exactly the kind of request that made their mission worthwhile. "Set course for Helios and contact Dr. Lee. Tell him we'll need agricultural specialists." The bioship Unity changed course, its hull already beginning to grow specialized organs for agricultural support. The ship would not only deliver aid, but would help the Helios colonists establish self-sustaining food systems that could feed their population for generations. This was the new model of galactic civilization that had emerged from the ashes of the Council. Instead of domination and control, the Alliance practiced cooperation and mutual aid. Instead of crushing technological development, they encouraged innovation and sharing. President Min Ho Kang, now in his second term, addressed the Alliance Assembly from the new capital on New Harmony. The world had been chosen specifically because it had no native sentient life, ensuring that no species would feel displaced by the government's presence. "Friends," he began, "5 years ago, we fought a war to save our allies and ourselves. Today we celebrate not victory in battle, but victory over the idea that might makes right." The assembled representatives, beings from hundreds of different worlds and species, listened in respectful silence. The Valix taught us that strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the ability to create and nurture. The bioships that protect our alliance are living proof of that lesson. As if summoned by his words, a formation of bioships passed over the capital city. Their hulls shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that spelled out messages of peace in a dozen different languages. "But our work is not finished," Kang continued. "There are still worlds suffering under authoritarian rule. There are still species being oppressed by those who believe themselves superior. And there are still memorial gardens that need tending." In the audience, Captain Tae Hyun Yoon listened with pride. His ship, the Wrath, had been transformed over the years from a weapon of war into a vessel of exploration and discovery. Just last month, they had made first contact with a previously unknown species and helped them establish peaceful relations with their neighbors. "The bioships continue to evolve," President Kang said, "but they evolve toward life, not death. They adapt not to destroy better, but to create better, to heal better, to protect better." On the memorial world of Kepler 442b, the first graduation ceremony in 50 years was taking place. Young Valix, grown from the genetic material preserved by the survivors, were completing their traditional education in the arts of life cultivation. Gentle Rain, one of the survivors who had escaped with Captain Nam, watched with tears of joy as the younglings demonstrated their ability to sing new forests into existence. The children had been raised by both Valix elders and human guardians, creating a unique blend of ancient wisdom and new hope. "They are beautiful," whispered Dr. Hana Kim, who had dedicated her life to the restoration project. "They carry the memories of their ancestors, but they also carry dreams of the future." The young Valix moved through the ceremony with the same graceful dignity their species had always shown. But there was something new in their movements. They had been raised in a galaxy where friendship between species was not just possible, but celebrated. Admiral So Young Choi, now retired but still serving as an advisor to the Alliance military, watched the ceremony through a live broadcast. At 73, she had lived to see humanity transform from a species struggling for acceptance to the protectors of galactic freedom. "Admiral," asked her aide, "do you ever regret how things turned out? The war? The destruction of the old order?" So Young considered the question carefully. "I regret that the Valix had to die for the galaxy to learn what friendship truly means. But I don't regret that their sacrifice led to something better." In the depths of space, Captain Yoon Ji Lim's ship Justice was on patrol near the border, between Alliance space and the former Hegemony Core worlds. These territories were slowly being integrated into the Alliance, but the process required patience and careful diplomacy. "Captain," reported her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from a Hegemony colony ship. They're requesting asylum. How many refugees? About 50,000. They say they're fleeing from warlords who are trying to re-establish the old council system. This was becoming more common as the years passed. Citizens of former council worlds often found that freedom was more appealing than the security of authoritarian rule. The Alliance had established entire worlds dedicated to helping these refugees start new lives. Grant them asylum, Yunji ordered, and contact the refugee settlement on Haven Prime. Tell them to prepare for new arrivals. The bioship Justice had evolved specialized systems for this kind of humanitarian work. Its hull could generate temporary habitation modules, and its biosystems could produce food, water, and medical supplies for large numbers of refugees. Back on Kepler 442b, Commander Hyejin Park was preparing for a special ceremony. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the Valix genocide, but instead of mourning, it had become a day of celebration and remembrance. "Are you ready?" asked Fleet Admiral Dong-Soo Kim, who had come specifically for this event. "Ready?" Hyejin replied, placing her hand on the neural interface that connected her to the Memorial Gardens bio-network. All across the restored world, humans and Valix joined together in a moment of silent connection. Through the bio-network, they could feel the pulse of life returning to the scarred worlds, the growth of new forests, the songs of species that had thought themselves extinct. In that moment, the consciousness that lived within the bioships touched every mind in the network. It was vast and alien, but also familiar and comforting. This was the legacy of the Valix, merged with human determination and love, evolved into something greater than either.